No, Department of Motor Vehicles, which is is known as DMV, is not Departamentos y Vehículos y Motores. Mari Carmen, have you ever seen anybody walking into that building with an engine? Not me. So what does motores have to do with all this stuff? Furthermore, vehículos might be correct if you want to use that. And then departamento. Okay, there is a difference in Spanish between a state department, a department that belongs to the state, and just un departamento in a department store. So there is a difference between the two. The translation that was provided by Mari Carmen is what we call a linear translation. So she saw Department of Motor Vehicles, and she transferred Department of, and then Motors, Vehicles. Maybe put Vehicles first and then Motors. That's a linear transfer. But unfortunately, DMV, or Department of Motor Vehicle, is a non-linear, requires a non-linear transfer. So the translation is, so why, how do I know that? Well, if I go to Mexico, I mean, if you look up words, any entity that is in Mexico or any part in Central America, Latin America, anywhere, Spain, try to find an entity that is known as Departamento de Motores y Vehículos, or de Vehículos y Motores. You won't find it. It doesn't exist. Therefore, the message doesn't make sense. This is a linear transfer of words, but it's not a message. Now, you go to Mexico and you can see, for example, Secretaría de Tránsito, which does exactly the same thing as a DMV here. Or in another country, you may see Dirección General de Tránsito. So you have several options. Which one you use, it's up to you, but there are options that convey a meaning that is identical to the meaning of DMV. So that's another thing we need to keep. It's not always about transferring the words for words, because, see, transferring like this, Department of Motor Vehicles, word for word, is something that definitely Google can do. Just picks each word and puts it in the same, without any knowledge whatsoever in terms of the legal aspect of it, and then just put it like that. Give you a translation, but it's not. The problem is that doesn't convey the message. So you can claim, look, I translated every single word. Yeah, but when you interpret, it's not about the words. It's about the message, and the message that you are transferring makes no sense whatsoever. You may think that it does, but it doesn't. So how do you know if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense? Well, you're going to learn it in this class, but most important of all, it's a good practice to start reading material that comes directly from Latin America, not from the US in Spanish. If you watch anything in the US in Spanish, be it you hear a radio station or you watch the news or any program, if it comes from the US, it's contaminated. If it comes from northern Mexico, sometimes it's also contaminated because of the proximity with the US. So you want to get things that come from Guadalajara, from Mexico City, from the south, Oaxaca, or maybe go down to Guatemala, Salvador, Honduras, anywhere, but get it directly from there. So it's always a good idea to write in Google, periódicos de El Salvador. And then you pick one and you read anything that has to do with the police. You will be surprised. For you, it might be a new vocabulary in some cases, but a vocabulary that you need to learn. All right, let's see if there is any other question. All right, so we talk about this idea of transferring messages and all that, and what is the requirement. So that's kind of done. But the question is, how do we interpreters transfer the messages? Well, we hear something and we interpret. That's our function. We cannot add, we cannot omit, we cannot change anything. We are a box that hears and transfers. Well, you can transfer it in various ways. One way that you can transfer it is transferring it as using a technique called simultaneous. And simultaneous is a technique that requires that you, the interpreter, interpret everything you hear at the same time. interprets everything you hear at the same time. Carmen, you're in Guatemala. You are very lucky. Such a beautiful country. Maribel, okay, yes. So if you're already in Latin, if you're taking it from Latin America, you have a little bit of an advantage, honestly, because you have access to material that is not contaminated. So that's good. So when we transfer this, we transfer it by hearing what we hear something, and then we transfer into the opposite language at the same time. So if I say this is a book, as I'm hearing, I'm saying este es un libro. I don't hear the whole thing. I just hear este es, this, este es. So you can see that this technique that we call simultaneous is more suitable not for messages but for words, because you're just transferring the words as they come to you. We always suggest that you're maybe one or two words behind. In other words, if the original is this is a book in English, you say here, when you hear you say este es un libro. So you can see that this one, when you hear is when you start saying this. Just to get a little bit more idea about the message. But the truth of the matter is that in the simultaneous mode, which is the one that is used a lot in court, it's more suitable for words than for message. Unless by hearing the first 2-3 words of a sentence, you know what the sentence is going to be, and therefore you know what the message is. How could that happen in a normal conversation? It won't be in a normal conversation. It will only happen in very specialized things where the material is repeated over and over again, like in criminal court. So in criminal court, you know that if it says you have the right, you're going to hear some right. You have the right to have an attorney at all stages of the proceeding against you. You know that phrase. So as soon as you hear you have the right to have an attorney, you know the whole phrase. So now you can transfer it instead of each word. Okay? So this is where we are heading. That's going to happen in the third course in this program in about 3 months or so, where you're going to start looking at the whole phrase, and you're going to be able to predict the phrase. You're going to be able to predict when the phrase is going to be said, and then as soon as you hear the beginning of the phrase, you will know the whole phrase. You will know the whole phrase. So, but simultaneous is more suitable for word type of thing, so it's difficult to get the message. So the state examiners know that, and therefore there is a lot more. Okay, I should say it this way. There is less requirement on syntax and word order than in any other technique. How else can we transfer the message from one language into the other? Well, we also have what we call consecutive. And when we say consecutive, the format is a little bit different. And consecutive is used specifically for questions and answers. The question in English, the answer in Spanish. So in a court of law, that happens often. The attorney is asking a witness who speaks English a question. The witness is answering in Spanish. So the way the consecutive works is that you, the interpreter, you need to wait for the whole question and then interpret. So if I say, what were you doing the night of December 17, 2020 at 9 p.m.? And then you interpret. ¿Qué hacía usted la noche del 17 de diciembre de 2020 a las 9 de la noche? And then I get an answer. Estaba esperando el camión con mi amigo José. Then you interpret. I was waiting for the bus with my friend José. Question. Did you see anything unusual happen at that time? Interpretation. ¿Vio usted algo poco común que sucediera en ese momento? Answer. Pues sí, vi al chavo que está sentado ahí con un arma apuntándole a José. You interpret. Well, yes, I saw that guy sitting over there with a weapon pointing it at José. That's the consecutive mode.